Race, religion, and reparations.
How America has a terrible past. It was about oppression, and it was a very heavy and sad and negative speech. And you contrast those two together, and this is one of the main reasons why we are.
So what Thomas is doing right here is attempting to, however, if you were to give black people reparations in 2025, especially those who have the mindset of ghettoism, ratchetness, and the mindset of victimhood mentality, they will be worse off 6 months from the date they receive that reparation.
List. Here's what they did.
Religion is man-made.
A bunch of religious and political hustlers got together to try to figure out how to control people, how to keep them in line. They knew people were basically stupid and would believe anything they were told.
George Carlin touches on a core concept of mine that is actual fact and can't be disproven. All religion is man-made, and the texts there are man-written. There's no doubt about it. Every religious book on this planet is by the written hand of a man. So we'll jump back into this a little bit later, but now let's dive into the Democrats introducing a bill concerning reparations, something they didn't do during the 4 years that Joe Biden was in office, but yet, and they controlled the House and the Senate. We're talking about the Democrats, but yet when Trump gets into office, now all of a sudden they want to reintroduce a bill. You can't make this type of foolery up. Allow us to bring them onto the stage and listen to what they have to say. I'll break it down. I'll dissect what it is that they're saying, and then I'll give you what's really going on. Allow us to dive in.
On steroids, and we refuse to be silent. We will not back down in our pursuit of racial justice. The antidote to anti-blackness is to be pro-black, and we will do it unapologetically. The United States government owes us a debt, and we need reparations now.
Here is a prime example of why these black liberal Democrats are a cancer to black progress. They're always pushing this victim mentality. They're always pushing looking backwards. We cannot look backwards and expect to make major progress moving forward. Of course, we need to understand and to actually acknowledge the fact that our ancestors suffered under the hands of some very evil individuals. Two things can be true. The founding fathers were great men who wrote a great constitution, and they were evil men who wrote into that constitution the barbaric behavior of slavery passed down and upon black individuals. However, these individuals are disingenuous. I'm talking about these black liberals, because they didn't push this bill when they had the House and the Congress, when President Biden was in office. They wait until Trump get into the office to reintroduce a bill. Why didn't you do it while Biden was in the office? It's all a political game. This is the nonsense that we have to deal with. And furthermore, like I said before, yes, reparations are old and due. However, if you were to give black people reparations in 2025, especially those who have the mindset of ghettoism, ratchetness, and the mindset of victimhood mentality, they will be worse off 6 months from the date they receive that reparation than their ancestors, our ancestors, who suffered under the heel of slavery and Jim Crow 100+ years before us, preceding us. They would be worse off because of their mindset, because of their consumerism, because of the fact that they lack morals, they lack ethics, and they lack the will to do things that's going to bring them about. I'm talking about the behavior of these black individuals who behave in that way. I'm not in no way suggesting all black people. By no means are all of us like that, but there is a large percentage of us that are like that and that are doing destructive and damage to our communities and continue to perpetuate it and do so in a way that they glorify that foolishness. Now, we're going to bring up Thomas Sowell. We're going to bring him on to the stage, and we're going to listen to what he has to say. I disagree with him on what he's saying in this point, although I do agree with him on a lot of things. He's coming from the right, but he's trying to conflate two different things and make it as into one. We'll break it down, and I'll destroy what he has to say as well. I'm an equal opportunity giver. I give it to both to the left and the right when they're out of line. Allow us to bring Thomas onto.
Slavery has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere, but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery, it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth, because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that put together. But nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them.
So what Thomas is doing right here is attempting to conflate two things. He's attempting to conflate slavery across the board as being one monolith practice. There are different categories and degrees of which slavery was implemented. Let's deal specifically with America's slavery, because this is what we are talking about. We're not talking about slaves over here, over there. We're talking about this government, and we're talking about the slavery that existed in this country. We have no pushing forward for other countries when it comes to their dealings with slavery, and people want reparations. So allow us to deal with chattel slavery in America. That wasn't the case across the board for all these countries that had slaves. That was uniquely for America in the Western Hemisphere, meaning chattel slavery robbed the individual of their religion, robbed the individual of their name, robbed the individual of their language, robbed the individual of their labor. And the brutality thereof also extended to the physical violence that was heaped upon these individuals. Also, the kidnapping, the selling of human beings across the board. Again, chattel slavery was a different set of slavery, and you cannot try to minimize the impact of slavery just because it happens everywhere. This is like trying to minimize the impact of, say, child molestation. Let's say pedophilia. Let's say sexual assault. There are different degrees of these things, but yet at the same time, you would never try to diminish the impact of these egregious behaviors because they happen elsewhere. And this is where I disagree with these individuals on the right. They want to push the narrative of that none of this stuff matters today. No, it does matter today, because you still celebrate those who actually engaged in it. My position on this is this. Yes, you can celebrate them for the great things that they've done, and you must hold them accountable for the evil things they've done. The thing with the right, and you'll see Charlie Kirk come up in just a second, another race hustler from the right. They want to deny the past when it comes to the evil of what the founding fathers engaged in and only want to elevate that which is good. So there are hypocrites as well. And those on the left, they want to be the victim forever and blame white supremacy, systematic injustice for everything that they encounter. They are hypocritical as well. Now, allow us to bring Charlie up, and then we're going to break this down, and I'm going to get out of here, and we're going to have a beautiful day. That's what we do. All right, so allow us to bring Charlie onto the stage.
To it. When Joe Biden gave a commencement address, it was all about systemic racism and police brutality and how America has a terrible past. It was about oppression, and it was a very heavy and sad and negative speech. And you contrast those two together, and this is one of the main reasons why we are seeing the greatest generational realignment since Woodstock, where you.
So again, we're dealing with Charlie Kirk. This is the individual that is speaking. He is brilliant in his ability to debate, and he likes to debate, especially against DEI and things that normally it's always centered around race, racism, and black people being a drain on everything. And he too is hypocritical when he comes across and acts as if there is no problem with what was done before, and there's no problem with the benefits that many individuals, generation after generation, were able to accrue because of the evil that was engaged in and legalized by this government. But yet they'll go all out against DEI and claim reverse racism. If racism had no impact 100 years ago, 60 years ago, 30, 40, 20 years ago, then indeed reverse racism in the form of DEI has no impact on an individual's ability to make a great life. We both know that's not true. It was done in the past and it was evil, and doing it now is evil. But yet they only want to recognize what is going on when it's directly pointed at them. And this is the hypocrisy of the right. I tell you, I bring it to both the left and the right when I find hypocrites who have a platform and who have millions of followers listening to their hypocrisy. Keep it 100. Keep it in alignment with truth across the board. If DEI, which was implemented in the form of slavery, Jim Crow, etc., all the things that were done, if it's detrimental now, it was detrimental then, and even more detrimental then. But now that it is targeting mainly white men, they have an issue. And again, I'm not for DEI, but I'm against hypocrisy across the board. So we're going to finish this out with George calling, and I will drop you the information that I want you to take with you, and we'll call it a day, all right? Let's bring George back to the table in just 1 second. Allow me to find him. Allow me to bring him up. And let's see what he has to say moving forward. Again, and then we'll break down again religion, God, and race very briefly, and we'll get on up out of here.
On a mountain when no one was around, God had given them the 10 Commandments. But let me ask you this. When they were sitting around making this shit up, why did they pick 10? Why 10? Why not 9 or 11? I'll tell you why. Because 10 sounds official. 10 sounds important. They knew if it was 11, people wouldn't take it seriously. So what, are you kidding me? The 11 Commandments? Get the fuck out of here.
So George makes legitimate points in a setting that is comedic, but he makes value points. And again, I'm not against religion. I'm not against individuals having their God. I'm not against any of that. I'm not against reparation. I only want to point out the obvious, the things that are going on that actually make you have to question what is going on. Again, all religion is man-made. All religion is man-made. They can claim that it's from God, but the words, the text, everything that was written in these books that you follow were the handwork of men. Now, if they got inspiration, only they know that. You do not know it. They know if they got inspiration or not, or if they was just trying to control and lead people in a different direction. But let me state this before we jump off. Even though religion is man-made, there are principles and precepts and concepts within those religious tenets that if you follow those things that are good for human growth, development, and for a society that is mainly peaceful, those tenets and precepts that are in there that represent that, those will do well for any human being who embraces it and for any society that embraces it. However, religion has been a tool for many individuals that practice it, many governments that stand behind it to oppress, to destroy, to maim, to kill, to I can't find that word, so we're going to go away from it. Destroy individuals in a barbaric manner, and this is what has been going on. So again, if you like the video, if you like the what it is that I'm saying, if you have comments and you want to debate the ideal of religion, God, reparations, feel free to leave the comment. And again, just because you don't believe in a religion and don't believe in the concept of the God of those religions doesn't mean that you don't believe that there's a higher power and understand that there's a higher intelligence that is the source of all things that's on this planet. And that is where my mindset is at. I know I did not create myself, and I know that I am the beneficiary of an intelligence that is omnipotent and that is encompasses all things that exist, the animate and the inanimate. Have a beautiful day. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell. Let's get this channel moving. Have a beautiful day. Sending you peace and always love. Peace.